Hello from Paris. My name is Brian Madden, and in this video, I'm going to talk a little bit more about the details of the content that I will be covering in the masterclass about digital workspace that I'm delivering in a bunch of different cities in Europe in 2024. So this video is actually follow on to a video I did earlier where I introduced the class and sort of why we're doing it and stuff. So you can look at that video for those details. I'm not going to go into that right now. Um, but I do want to sort of follow up with a deeper dive into the actual content because we've heard that from a lot of people. So, another thing I heard from a lot of people was so I live in Paris now and I'm working for a boutique consulting firm called Ilki. And a couple things about Ilki that are really important is number one, Ilki, we are completely independent. So it's a lot similar to the days when I was at brandmadden.com. We are not a partner with any vendors. We are not a reseller. We are not. We are just fully independent consulting and analyst firm. So this training class is completely independent. We'll talk about Microsoft, Citrix, VMware, all the new players in the spaces, what's happening in trends in a completely vendor neutral way. Um, I also want to address the background. So when I did the last video, we just got to Paris in January and just get into our new apartment where I am right now in February. And this is my office, and I don't have like all the fun background yet, but I made some drawings because people were like, "Are you in Paris?" Like, clearly, look at my background. So yeah, so hello from my home office here in Paris in the third. So the training class we're going to do throughout Europe, not just within Paris. The specific locations are always evolving. So we've got a few cities and dates set. You can see the QR code to go to ilki.fr/masterclass to get the latest locations. But if I just look a little bit at the content of the class, so the training class, it's me as the instructor. It's 2 days. It's basically, we got 2 full days. We'll have lunch together. If anyone is staying in town overnight, we can have dinner together that first night. It's taking my sort of 30 years of experience in end user computing consulting and consolidating that down into 2 days as like a quick knowledge transfer of everything that you need to know to be successful building a digital workplace or end user computing strategy. So really, this class is not about any specific product. We're going to look at all the trends and everything that's happening right now and really tie it back to like what's real and what's practical. So not all the hypothetical knowledge, but like if you're dealing with your users and the security and remote access and working from anywhere and AI and all these things you're thinking about, what are plans and steps you can put into place to sort of be successful. So a lot of the topics we're talking about really tie back to what's actually happening actually out there in the world. And one of the things that's cool about this, and this training class I mentioned in the last video, Vincent Branger, who's the one of the co-founders of Ilki and someone I've known for decades. You may know him. He's been a speaker at Brightform in the past. He's lives here in Paris also. He delivered a version of the training class over the various years that has been in French. Obviously, I'm doing it in English. And one of the things I loved about that class, and we're continuing in the English version, is focusing on how you can be successful with end user computing in the context of your business. Because what we found is over the years, HR and sort of the human factors is a lot more relevant than it was in the past because it's not just technology policy now, it's like how you own the devices, how you manage the devices, what you can do legally, the whole consumerization of IT, where users are working, how they're working, the constraints, GDPR, working hours. There's a lot that goes into being successful. At the end of the day, we really look at end user computing and digital workspace is like how your employees get their work done. So everything your people need to do their jobs, which historically has been just technology. I'm looking around at my piles of gadgets here in my desk. Historically, it's just been technology, but as you know now, it's about policy and how you create opportunities for success and collaborate and all these kinds of things. So we're looking at all the trends and how they integrate with the business, how collaboration platforms work, the trends around OKRs and how you measure success, measure employees. There's the trend of the new interfaces we're seeing for things, right? So, it's not just typing and document sharing, it's sharing videos, it's collaboration, it's people using consumer focused applications, text to speech, voice interfaces, the future like these building personal automations, AI assistants, low code, no code environments, the citizen developer, all these kinds of things from the user perspective. But we talked about the consumerization of IT 10, 15 years ago, and this that trend of course has increased, and your end users are able to access of limitless capabilities with technology. So how do you not restrict that? That's sort of the old way of thinking, but how do you take that power that the users are able to access and really empower them and help your organization leverage what your employees are able to do? So it's so fascinating what's happening in this industry right now, and I just love these conversations, and I love hearing what you're doing and just talking through these different things. Of course, we have to talk about the big vendor strategies. In the old days, it was like Citrix, VMware, Microsoft. Well, Microsoft, of course, is bundling their desktop virtualization, Azure Virtual Desktop, Intune, and co-management, along with their Office suite. All the copilots that they're building. Google, of course, is building their copilots and their Office suites. Um, you've got kind of the platform bundle device major players of Google and Microsoft. Also, the smartphone and device makers like Samsung has an interesting perspective here. Apple has an interesting perspective here. The big vendors are driving. They have their strategies and their version of the future. But of course, your role within all this is to like tie this all together. You're going to have users who are on Android and in the Google ecosystem, and the Microsoft ecosystem, and the Apple ecosystem. How do you make all that sort of work together, and what do you have to think about, like where are the gotchas? This is the kind of stuff that we're going to look into. you know I really also enjoy looking at um like in this sort of post-pandemic world. There's been data that's come out that there was a big talk about CEOs trying to force employees back into the office full time. Largely, that's kind of failed. A lot of corporations are moving to like hybrid approach. Well, we've been hybrid for a while, but it's looking like hybrid is going to stick, right? Even at Ilky, I go to the office 3 days a week. And so it's looking like hybrid is going to stick, and that will be the way of working. But a lot of employees are working at home, they're working at the office, they're working at third places. You've got different like collectives and office type spaces. And how do you deal with all of that and making sure that employees can get access to everything? How do you organize your work and your projects when some people are always on-prem, some people are never on-prem, some people are half in between? How do you make sure that you're not rejecting the future of your younger workers? Like the younger workers in your 20s, when you come right out of university, you learn a lot by being around people. If everyone's working at home, how do you make sure your next generation, like especially with AI, that can do all the easy jobs? So we can't remove all your young employees and replace it with AI, because then you lose your pipeline. So how do you manage that? How do you organize your projects around this? How do you organize your data around this? A lot of frontline workers too. How do you keep them in the fold? So these are things that are happening right now, and I want to just take all these sort of trends you're reading about and tie them back again to very specific actions and policies and approaches you can take within your organization to address this. So we talk about changes in collaboration, changes in collaborating around projects, collaborating around data, collaborating around tasks. There's all these trends about the employee experience tools, which in our industry in EUC, employee experience began as like, how well is your Windows workstation running? Is it blue screening? Is it being slow? But that's like just a tiny little piece of employee experience. Is kind of blown up so much bigger than that. It's about where your employees are. Again, it's the same stuff: where they're working, how they're interacting, what applications they're using. How do we deliver a good experience to them? Because of course, at the end of the day, if we don't, well, they're going to work somewhere where they could. Generative AI is a huge thing. I actually spoke recently at the Dutch VMUG and was able to give a keynote. It was called "The AI Train is Leaving the Station," and I feel like I missed it. It was a very fun talk. I'll put a version of that online in the next few weeks. But AI is a big piece of this. I'm not an AI engineer. We're not building LLM models in this class, but we also have to understand that employees are using these LLMs, sort of whether you want them to or not. They're on their phones. This is the ultimate consumerization of IT. So, every organization today is benefiting or being impacted by this technology. Even if your policy is no, we do not do it, your employees are doing it. So what is that impact? What does that mean? How do we think about this? How do we make it help our environments? How do we integrate it? Where do we need to be careful? How does it apply to GDPR and all these kinds of things? So the employee use, the rise of the employee use of AI, it's absolutely a big piece of the digital workplace today. Of course, I want to also look at sort of the updates on all of the various things that we've been talking about for decades, the device management models, right? Corporate owned, business operated, corporate owned, personally enabled, BYOD, all these various ownership and management models. How do we manage the devices? How do we manage the apps? How do we manage the identity? How do we manage the security? What are all the UEM players doing, right? Um, I mentioned before, there's an evolution of in this space of these players. I'll talk about them more in a little bit, but also all the complementary tools. UEM was about managing devices and applications, but now how we deal with like peripherals and the workplace analytics and getting into the new device deployment, out of box delivery experience. Keeping devices up to date. It's like there's a lot going on across the ecosystem, all device vendors, Mac and Windows, Linux, Chromebooks, all that sort of thing. Of course, all digital workplace classes and conversations focus on applications. On brianmadden.com, almost 30 years ago, I've been writing about it's all about the apps. Now we have cloud hosted apps, we have native apps, we have progressive web apps, there's Windows apps. Enterprise browsers is a thing that is back in a big way. These are some things that came out 15 years ago, and it was managing versions of Java and everything, but now delivering enterprise browsers is a big piece of a holistic digital workplace strategy. There's a lot of different ways to do that. How to deliver Windows applications? Are they delivered? Um, what I want to say, like, are they installed locally? Are they streamed? Are they remote? Are they remote on-prem? Are they remote far away? Are you delivering whole desktops? Is it just applications? What's happening, with DAS versus VDI versus on-prem and all the vendors? Like I said, Microsoft kind of took off, and they've got Azure Virtual Desktop and Microsoft 365 and Windows 365. Citrix is owned by private equity. VMware is owned by private equity. VMware is being spun off to be bought by KKR, and what's their company called? Omnissa or something now. Um, do you go VMware? Do you go Citrix? Do you stay on VMware? Do you stay Citrix? Do you just go to Microsoft? There's all these new companies, like newer kind of DAS focused companies. We've actually done. I did a project at Ilky a month ago, looking at WorkSpot, Aporto, Dision Frame, Cameo, Sonnet.io, Ninja One, all these sort of new UEM and DAS companies that exist. Are they real? Are they not? Are they legit? What are they selling? What's their IP? What's their approach? Do we like them? Do we not like them? We're going to dig into all those in this class. So all the new players, all the new approaches. As I said, also, digital workspace has always been about delivering work, whatever that means, to the location wherever the employees are. But of course, we have to do it with the right security, with the right awareness, with the right context, with the right mobility. We have to integrate with all the other things that we deal with. How do you look at like SASE and zero trust and your WAN and your security and the VPNs? Do we have VPNs anymore? How do we evolve VPNs? How to authenticate users? We're moving to passwordless. How do we monitor the flow? Like when the user opens a device and pushes a button, go, I want to use this application. How does it go? Where does it go? What are the hops? How do we even track this? Is it secure? Is there drops? Where are the breach? How do we even know? Let's take a step back and really look at what we as IT department need to understand as we're looking at this. We really, really, really dig quite a bit into security in this class, and security not just of like the classic, users and passwords and policies and encryption, but things like all these APIs. Do we enable the APIs? Yes. Do we lock them down? How do we know that? How do we track? How do we govern them? Look at Microsoft's Power Platform, which by the way is now Copilot enabled too. This allows your citizen developers to kind of build anything. Hey, it's fantastic. Any user can build any app. They're empowered. We've done our jobs. They can share it. And now a user builds an app and boom, instantly 12,000 users in your company are using that app. Is it secure? Is it tweeting automatically our customer data? Like, what is happening? We want to enable this. We want to support this, but also like, whoa, how do we just wrap our heads around this, and how do we think about this? So, um, there's a lot from the legal standpoint to think about here. Obviously, our classes in Europe are focused on GDPR and the various things. How do we protect our company? How do we protect our users? Also, how do we, monitor users while having them trust us and get into a position of trust? Trust is interesting here because, I also like to look at how we trust, how we protect the IT staff. Remember the old days, like you wanted domain admin rights? Like I just wanted to be a domain admin because I wanted the ultimate power. But now I'm like, domain admin is too powerful. Like I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want to have more permissions and more rights than I need to do my job because I don't want to be able to push a button and automatically share customer data. And now, like, I don't want all the rights anymore, right? I do not want to be a global admin who can do anything. I want some technology looking over my shoulder to be like, did you really mean to delete that entire organizational unit? And then, of course, how to manage all that while maintaining privacy. So out of that, the final thing is it's like, we talk about all these theories and hypotheticals and all this sort of thing, but how do we actually define? So to back up, at the end of the day, you need a digital workplace strategy. What does that look like? How do you do it? Where do you begin? How do you justify it to the business? How do you integrate that with your change management? How do you think about how it fits in with your other company initiatives around inclusivity or environmental things? And is how do you continue to monitor the transition of your IT department to become more modernized and service oriented in the context of what's everything that's happening in the world today? So that's what is in this training class. You can check out ilki.fr/masterclass to see the various locations and dates upcoming. We're looking at locations in Europe. Maybe I'll do it in the US. It is an in-person class. And yeah, send me an email, bmadden at ilki.fr. Let me know your thoughts. Connect with me on LinkedIn. This is a very fun class. I really enjoy it. And I'm looking forward to continuing the conversation, just figuring out in 2024, what in the world are we doing in the world of EUC? See you soon.